Okay, let's get started. Hello, and thank you for joining us today. This is Debbie Harami with Softomotive Robotic Process Automation Software Solutions, and our webinar today is the first of a series that aims to explain in detail how you can make the most out of your WinAutomation robots. Today we have with us Peter Feleskouras, one of our professional support champions, and he will be demonstrating how to easily automate all your Excel actions. Before we start, please note that you can submit any questions that may arise during the webinar by typing into the questions pane, which should be located on your attendee control panel on the right of your screen. And if you would like to tweet, you can use the hashtag Excel Automation, or you can even tweet directly to us at WinAutomation RPA, which is our Twitter handle. Today we have a full house, and so if we don't manage to answer all your questions during the Q&A session at the end, we will definitely make sure we follow up with all the answers to any questions that were raised. So I guess we're good to go. Off to you, Peter.
Thank you, Debbie. Hello, everybody. I'm Peter Feleskouras from Softomotive, and I'm an automation solutions developer. During this webcast, we'll go through the Excel group of actions. In WinAutomation 7, some brand new and advanced Excel actions have been added, which gives us the opportunity to manipulate our Excel files in many different ways, and so that we're able to automate all our Excel-related tasks more efficiently. So I have created an Excel file here with information about a virtual company. As we can see, it has 3 worksheets with information about the company's employees, the company's departments, and the company's branches. So we will demonstrate all the Excel actions through some simple examples. The first thing that we have to do in order to interact with an Excel file is to use either the launch Excel action right here in order to open the file and manipulate it, or the attach to running Excel action in order to instruct our robot to attach to this file if it is already open. So we will begin with the attach to running Excel action so as to attach to the running Excel with this file path here. Thereafter, we use the set active Excel worksheet action, and we set the name or the index of the worksheet with which we want to interact. In this case, the worksheet employees, the first one. At this point, we want to read the data from the Excel worksheet, but in order to do so, we would need at first to use the get first free column row from Excel worksheet action in order to store the number of the first free row and column into those 2 variables. So even if we do not know how many rows or columns with data we have in our worksheet, we can retrieve the last row and column with data through this action here. So let's see with a simple display message, which is the first free row and the first free column. As we can see here, the first free row is row 24 and first free column, column number 6, which is indeed correct. So now we use the read from Excel worksheet action and set the range of cells whose values we want to retrieve, and we store the data into the variable Excel data. And this one will be, of course, a data table variable. So we set the range here, and then we should go to the Advanced tab and check the first line of range contains column names, because this is how we have created our Excel file. The first row contains column names. So in this way, the robot will understand that the first row has information about the names of the columns. So we'll begin with the first function here. At first, we will see how we can retrieve data from a data table from the data table variable that we saw before. In order to retrieve a data table row, we should use the data table's row index. So as we can see here, if we write Excel data 0, we will retrieve the first row, the values of the first row. So I will run it. And here we can see the information of the first row, row 0. In the same way, we can retrieve information of any other row. For example, for the fourth row, it is 0 based, so when I write 3 here, it's row number 4. So we will retrieve the fourth row in this way, which is this row here. In a similar way, if we want to retrieve a value of a data table cell, of a specific cell, we should use both the row index and the column index. So in this case here, the first number is the row index and the second number is the column index. So I want to retrieve the value of cell 0, 0, and as we can see, it's the first name in the column, in the names columns. This is the value of 0, 0, 0. In the same way, if I write 7, 4, I will retrieve the value of the cell at row number 8 and column number 5, which is this one here, this value. So we saw how we can retrieve data from a data table variable. I retrieve either the rows, either a specific row or a specific value from the data table. So we'll go on with the next function. And in this case, we want to loop through the rows of the data table and access the cells of each data row. In order to do so, we should use the for each action. With the for each action, we'll loop through the rows of the Excel data variable. This is our data table with all the data, so we'll loop through the rows of this variable, and each row will be stored into the current row variable. So the current row will contain the information of each row at each iteration. So it would be a data row. In order to retrieve the cells of each row, we should use the column indexes in this case. So current row is a data row, which means that current row 0 is the value of the first column of this row. In the same way, current row 1 is the second column of the same row. So for each iteration, this has the information of the first row, the first column of the first row, the second column of the first row, the third column of the first row, etc. So let's run this automation. So here are we can see the information about the first row. Then it will go on with the next row when I click OK, and we can see the information of the second row, and so on. It loops through the rows, etc. So let's go on with the next automation. In the next example, we will loop through the data table's cells, and we will retrieve their values. So in order to do so, we would need two for each actions, the one embedded into the other. The first one will loop through the rows, and the second one through the columns of each row. In this way, we will loop through the cells. So the first one loops through the Excel data table, and stores its row into this variable, and then the other one loops through the rows. And in this way, we retrieve information about all the cells. So let's run this one. So in this way, we loop through the first row at first. Here are all the information of the first row, and then it goes on with the next one, the next row, the second one, and we get all the information of the second row. And it will go on until the end of the data table. Okay. So now let's see how we can manipulate the worksheets of this Excel file. We have several actions with which we're able to manipulate the worksheets. So at first I would like to get the active worksheet. This is the active worksheet here. So at first I would like to get the active worksheet and retrieve its name and its index. So the name of this worksheet is employees, and its index is number 1. So at this point I will add a new worksheet, and I will name it my worksheet. So I can add a new worksheet, and then after that I would like to get all the worksheets that there are right now in my Excel file, and all their names will be stored into the sheet names list. This will be a list variable, and I will display them with a message. So we will add a new worksheet. We will get all the worksheets. All the names of the worksheets will be stored into this variable, into a list variable, and then we will display them with a message. So these are all the worksheets. I have 4 right now, and this is the one that was added. We could, of course, rename an existing worksheet. So I would like to rename my worksheet to my renamed worksheet. So as we can see, the name changed. And finally, I will delete it. We set here the name or the index of the worksheet that we want to delete. And it was deleted, so the file is like in the beginning. In the next example, we will write some data to our Excel worksheet. So with the write to Excel worksheet action, I would like to write this name to the first column of the first free row, and then I would like to write this surname to the second column of the first free row, etc. So in this way, I will insert a new row. So let's see. As you can see here, a new row has been inserted in our Excel file with those values here. Instead of a new row, we could also insert a list of values. So I have created a list here, a name list with some names, some random names, and I would like to write this list to the first column. I'd like to add some names here. So I would need, in this case, just one write to Excel worksheet action, and I will write this name list, it is a list variable, into the first column of the first free row. So some names were added here. We could, of course, write a data table, whatever we want. So we can, of course, insert columns or rows to our Excel worksheet. So, for example, I would like to insert a new row in row index number 6 and a new column in column index number 5. And in this column, in column number 5, I would also like to store some information regarding the city of an employee. So I would like to create a new column with information about the city of each employee. So I create the column and then I write the value city at the first row of this new column. So let's run it. We can see a new row has been inserted here and also a new column with the name city. So in this case, I could, like we saw before, I could loop through the rows, and at the current row 4, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, I could write some values in my new column. And of course, we can delete them with the corresponding actions. Delete row and delete column from my worksheet. So they're deleted and everything is back. So instead of storing the data of the Excel file into a data table like we saw until now, what we did until now, we used the read from Excel worksheet action and we stored the data table of the Excel file into this variable here, the Excel data variable. Instead of doing like something like this, we could also interact directly with the Excel file. So in this case, we will not use this action at all, and we will interact directly with this worksheet here. I will activate the next function. So let's see how we can manipulate the cells of the worksheet, interact with them directly. I can activate a cell. I can activate a specific cell. So I set here the column and the row of the cell that I want to activate. Let's say column, the cell of column 5 and row 6. And this was the cell that was activated. Row 6, column 5. Instead of this, we could also activate a number of cells, several cells. So in this case, I would like to select a range of cells from column 1, row 5 to until here. So now when I focus on the Excel, I can see that all these cells have been activated. Now, we could use this, we could copy those values somewhere else, and we will see right now how we can do this. A very useful action is the get selected cell range from Excel. This action gives us information about the range of cells that has been already selected. So with the previous action, the select cells in worksheet, I selected a range of cells. And with this action, I get information about the selected cells. So with this action, we retrieve the first and last column and row indexes of the selective range. And we will use this information here in order to copy the selected range somewhere else. So in the copy cells from Excel worksheet action, I set here the variables that I took from the previous one. So from the get selected cell range, I take those variables and I put them in here in the copy cells action. so as to copy the whole selected range. So now the selected range has been copied to my clipboard, and I can write these values wherever I want. I could write them to a notepad, to a Word file, to another Excel file. It doesn't matter. It's in my clipboard. So let's say that I would like to launch a new Excel file, a blank document, and paste the copied cells there. So I want to paste them on column 1, row 1 of my new Excel file. So let's run it again. A new Excel file opened, and the selected range was copied here. So with those actions here, we can interact directly with our Excel file. We activate a specific cell or a range of cells, and we can copy them and paste them somewhere else. Let's go to the last automation. So we saw before the importance of the get first free column and row action. This one right here, which gives us information about the first free row and column of our Excel worksheet. Now we will see why the get first free row and column action can be very useful sometimes. So let's think of a use case in which we have an Excel file with a lot of rows, maybe thousands of rows, and we want to loop through the rows and do something with the data of each row. We could probably populate some web forms or something. So in this case, we could have an extra column here named processed, and every time that a row has been will have been processed, we could write here the word done, for example. We could build a logic for that. So all these rows with the word done have been processed until here, for example. Remember that we could have thousands of rows here. So let's say that for some reason the robot halts its execution. The internet connection could drop, or the computer could shut down for some reason. So in this case, we would need to know which was the last row that was processed, so that the robot will continue its execution with the next one like nothing happened. This can be done with this action. We can find the first free row of the processed column and then go on from there. So let's run it and see which is the first free row on column processed. The first free row on column F is row number 8, which is indeed correct. So we know which is the first free row on this column, and now we could go on from here. Okay, Debbie, I have finished with the demonstration of the actions. Would you like to go on?
Thank you, Peter. That was brilliant. We have some time left, so let's start by answering some questions. We have a lot of questions asked, so here is the first one. So a fellow wants to know if there is any way we can point to a column by using the letter instead of using its index number.
Yes, of course we could do something like that. It's not necessary that we use the column number. We could use the column name. So for example, when we read values from the Excel worksheet, And here I said, for example, that I want to start from column 1. Instead of this, I could write that I would like to start from column A. It would be exactly the same. So if I run it, the Excel data is exactly the same. We have retrieved those values. So yes.
Okay, thanks for that, Peter.
You're welcome.
And there is another question kind of related to this one. So the question is, are we able to use the column names to retrieve a cell's value?
Yes, the column names, of course, we can use them when we refer to a certain cell. So in cases where we want to retrieve a cell's value, for example, in this one here, where I look through the rows of the Excel worksheet, instead of current row 0 here, I could write current row name. So it could be exactly the same. So now it knows that I refer to this specific column, and in the same way I could write here surname.
Perfect. Another question is, if you could show us how to save an Excel file as today's current date.
In order to save an Excel file, we could use the close Excel action and choose the option save document as. So I set the Excel instance that I want to save here, and then I save the document. After I have saved the document, since the document have been saved, then I can find the document and change its name to the current date. How could I do something like that? With the datetime actions, I could get the current date and time. This value will be stored here in the current datetime variable. But it's very important here that this one, the current datetime variable, is of type datetime. So we need, of course, to convert it to text to rename a file with this value. So we would need to go to the text actions and use the convert datetime to text next. And the datetime variable will be converted to a text variable. And then we could use this variable to rename the Excel file with the rename files action. For example, we have a specific action which renames files, this one. So here we put the path of the file that we want to rename, and the new name, this field should be filled by the current date variable.
Right, that's good.
In this way.
Great. Thank you, Peter. Another question is, I guess, a more simple one. So how do you bold or change color of a cell or range?
In order to bold a specific cell, we will need at first to activate the cell. So let's go to the Excel actions. We would need to use the activate cell in Excel worksheet and activate a specific cell. So for example, I want to activate this cell here. Let's see. Okay, this cell is activated. So now I could focus on this window and then send the Control B, probably key, to make this bold. So I could use the focus window action to focus on the Excel window. And then we could use the send keys to send the control B shortcut, shortkey. Control B. And you can see that it became bold. Yes.
Fantastic, thank you. One more question. So when closing an Excel instance, how do you specify it as an XLSX instead of XLS?
We saw before the action with which we can close an Excel instance, the close Excel action. So when I choose to save the document, I have several options here. I can choose one of them. I can save it with many formats. So there is an XLSX here, XLS, whatever. So you could use this one here.
Great.
Okay.
There is another question, how to copy the text from a cell to Word or Notepad? You can answer that.
Yes, to copy a cell, at first, we should activate the cell or the range of cells. So in case it is one cell, we should use the activate cell in Excel worksheet action. Or in case there are a lot of cells, this one. So let's say we want to activate a range of cells. We want to copy a range of cells. So I set here the range. Let's say from column 1, row 1 to column 4, row 4. So I activate the range at first. Okay. And then with the copy cells action, we can choose here to copy the selection. So I select it, I choose to copy the selected cells, and now they will be copied to my clipboard. So I can paste them wherever I want. I could open the notepad and paste them there. So let's run it. Now the cells are copied to my clipboard. So I could build the logic to paste them wherever I want. Let's say the notepad, I could open the notepad with the run application action and paste them here. And or probably in a Word file, wherever.
Great. I think we still have time since everybody's still here, okay. So a couple of questions more. So when we interact directly with Excel file, the row or the column indexes are not zero-based?
Yes, there is a difference here. When we read the data, when we use this action to read data from an Excel file, let's see what we get. We get this data table with the retrieved data. Everything is here. So we can see here that this is a data table with, and the first row, of course, is row number 0. So when we want to refer to Alisa, for example, we will need to write something like Excel data, and then the row index would be 0, and the column index would be again 0. But when we want to refer to Alisa directly, for example, when we want to activate this cell with the activate cell in worksheet action, I wouldn't write here as 0 like before. I would need to write number 2. The row would be row number 2, and the column will be column number 1 or A. So this is a difference. When we interact directly with Excel file, we need to input the exact row number and the exact column number or name. When we copy, when we read with the read from Excel action and manipulate the Excel data variable, which is the retrieved data table, in this case, there is a different, in order to refer to the first cell, for example, would need to write the index, the row index would need to be 0, and the column index would also need to be 0. In this case, it is 0 based.
Okay, thank you, Peter. Well, time is up, and we need to respect everyone's time. So thank you, everybody, for attending today's webcast. We will make sure we will follow up with answers to any questions that have not been addressed during the live session, and we're sorry for that. Once you leave today's webinar, you will receive a short survey. We would really appreciate it if you could provide your feedback. And there's also a question about what would you like to be covered in one of our upcoming webinars in this series. So please also make sure you let us know. Thanks again and have a great day.